Welcome to our channel. We aggregate news from multiple reliable sources to save you time and bring you the most important stories in one place. If you find this valuable, subscribe now and hit the like button to support our work. Breaking news from Davos, Switzerland. Just hours ago, President Donald Trump made a stunning declaration that could reshape international relations. After weeks of escalating threats and military rhetoric, Trump has now ruled out using military force to acquire Greenland. This is not a small story. This is a complete reversal. For weeks, the White House refused to rule out military intervention. Senior officials kept all options on the table. European allies deployed troops to Greenland in response. NATO faced its deepest crisis in decades. And then today, at the World Economic Forum, everything changed. Trump stood before world leaders and said the words no one expected. I won't use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force. Let that sink in. But before you think this crisis is over, listen closely. Trump immediately pivoted to his next move. He announced he is seeking immediate negotiations with Denmark and Greenland. He wants talks now. He wants the United States to acquire Greenland through diplomacy. He called it a national security priority. If you're enjoying this breakdown, hit the subscribe button. We bring you verified news from trusted sources so you don't have to search multiple platforms. Trump's speech in Davos was remarkable. He spent over an hour defending his position on Greenland. He called Denmark ungrateful. He said only the United States can protect what he called this giant piece of ice. He argued that U.S. control would strengthen NATO, not weaken it. But here's what's fascinating. Trump made a critical mistake during his speech. Multiple times, he confused Greenland with Iceland. He said, until the last few days when I told them about Iceland, they loved me. Iceland is an independent nation. Greenland is a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark. They are not the same. The audience noticed. World leaders noticed. The media noticed. And if this story interests you, leave a comment below telling us what you think about Trump's strategy. We read every comment. Trump's change in tone comes after unprecedented international pressure. 8 European nations received tariff threats from the United States. France, Germany, the United Kingdom, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and the Netherlands all faced 10% tariffs starting February 1st, rising to 25% by June 1st, unless the U.S. acquires Greenland. European leaders responded with force. They deployed military units to Greenland as part of Operation Arctic Endurance. French President Emmanuel Macron said French military units were already on their way. Swedish troops arrived. German forces joined. Denmark announced it would defend Greenland with deadly force, if necessary. This was not a drill. This was preparation for potential conflict between NATO allies. NATO faced an existential crisis. The chairman of Denmark's Defense Committee, Rasmus Jarlov, stated publicly that Denmark would invoke Article 5 if the United States attacked Greenland. Article 5 is NATO's collective defense clause. It means an attack on one member is an attack on all members. Think about that. The United States and Denmark could have been at war. Before we continue, hit that like button if you appreciate detailed news coverage that gives you the full picture. So, why does Trump want Greenland? He claims Russia and China pose threats to the territory. He argues Denmark cannot adequately defend the island. He points to Greenland's strategic location in the Arctic. He emphasizes the territory's mineral wealth, particularly rare earth, elements essential for modern technology and defense systems. According to the conversation, Greenland contains significant deposits of neodymium, dysprosium, graphite, copper, and lithium. China currently controls over 60% of rare earth. Mining globally and refines 90% of these materials. This gives China tremendous economic leverage. Trump's 2025 National Security Strategy identifies controlling the Western Hemisphere and limiting Chinese influence as top priorities. Greenland fits directly into this framework. But international relations experts question Trump's reasoning. As reported by The Conversation, Greenland is already a NATO member. The United States and Denmark signed a defense agreement in 1951 allowing the U.S. to build military installations in Greenland. The U.S. already operates Pitchifik Space Base there, supporting missile warning and defense operations. Subscribe now if you want to stay informed on global political developments. The people of Greenland have spoken clearly. Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen stated, "Greenland does not want to be owned by the USA. Greenland does not want to be governed by the USA. Greenland will not be part of the USA. Greenland has a population of approximately 57,000 people. They have repeatedly emphasized their sovereignty. They have welcomed increased security cooperation with the United States and other allies. But they have flatly rejected any transfer of control. This past weekend, thousands of Greenlanders marched through the capital Nuuk in a Stop Trump protest. Demonstrators carried banners, reading Yankee Go Home. The message was unmistakable. Denmark also pushed back forcefully. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said, "Greenland is not for sale. You can't buy another people." Danish Foreign Minister Lars, like Rasmussen, called Trump's pressure campaign completely unacceptable. The international response extended beyond Europe. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney delivered a powerful speech at Davos warning of a rupture in the international order. Without naming Trump directly, Carney said, "We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons, tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion. If you haven't already, hit subscribe and the notification bell so you never miss important updates like this." The crisis escalated dramatically after Trump's successful military operation in Venezuela. The United States captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in early January. Trump said the U.S. would run Venezuela until a proper transition could occur. He announced U.S. oil companies would enter Venezuela to fix infrastructure and would be reimbursed for their efforts. This emboldened Trump's approach to Greenland. Senior advisor Stephen Miller stated publicly that the U.S. has the right to take Greenland. Miller's wife, Katie Miller, posted a map showing Greenland covered in the U.S. flag with the word "soon." The post drew widespread condemnation. But today's speech marked a dramatic shift. Trump ruled out military force for the first time. He said he could use excessive strength where the U.S. would be unstoppable, but he won't do that. He said this was probably his biggest statement because people thought he would use force. However, Trump issued a warning to his NATO allies. "You can say yes, and we'll be very appreciative, or you can say no, and we will remember that threat remains, the tariffs remain. The diplomatic pressure continues." Leave a comment sharing your thoughts on how this situation should be resolved. Congressional response has been mixed. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson dismissed any serious consideration of military action. He said, "I don't think anybody's seriously considering that. And in the Congress, we're certainly not." But Vice President J.D. Vance defended Trump's approach. Vance told reporters to take the president seriously. He said Greenland is really important, not just to America's missile defense, but to the world's missile defense. Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego introduced a resolution to block Trump from invading Greenland. Senator Chris Murphy stated that NATO countries would, of course, have to defend Greenland against the U.S., if necessary under Article 5. Former Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, who led Trump's party until 2025, characterized attempts to seize Greenland as trampling the sovereignty, respect, and trust of allies. He called the use of force an especially catastrophic act of strategic self-harm to America and its global influence. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte called for thoughtful diplomacy amid what he described as tensions within the alliance. Rutte, often called the Trump whisperer for his ability to deal with the president, said there was no doubt tensions existed at the moment. If you're still watching, show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel. Trump's proposal at Davos included building what he called a Golden Dome. This would be a multi-layer missile defense system to protect the U.S. from Russian and Chinese intercontinental ballistic missiles. He said no nation or group of nations is better positioned to defend Greenland than the United States. But the European Union has threatened countermeasures. EU leaders stalled approval of a proposed EU-US trade agreement. They discussed using the EU anti-coercion instrument in response to Trump's tactics. The legal implications are significant. As reported by the Council on Foreign Relations, forcefully seizing Greenland would constitute a rebuke of national sovereignty, a cardinal principle of international relations and U.S. foreign policy since World War II. Thomas Crosby, a U.S. military expert at the Royal Danish Defence College, stated that any attempt to seize Greenland would constitute a criminal act. Denmark, with backing from its allies, would have the legal right to arrest any Americans involved and prosecute them under Danish criminal law. Subscribe now for more in-depth international news coverage. Denmark operates under a 1952 standing order requiring Danish troops to immediately take up the fight without waiting for or seeking orders in the event of an attack on Danish territory. The Danish government confirmed in January 2026 that this order remains in place. Danish soldiers would respond with force if Greenland is attacked. This is not theoretical. Denmark deployed combat soldiers trained in Arctic warfare to Greenland. General Peter Harling Boysen, chief of the Royal Danish Army, personally deployed with his forces. He stated publicly that he is ready to defend Greenland. The deployment might remain in Greenland for 1 to 2 years, according to Danish officials. Meanwhile, Russia and China have offered measured responses. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Trump would undoubtedly go down in history if he resolves the issue of Greenland's accession. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning said the U.S. should not use China as a pretext. She emphasized that China's Arctic activities aim at promoting peace, stability, and sustainable development in accordance with international law. Before we wrap up, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on. The economic stakes are enormous. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told European leaders to take a deep breath and avoid reflexive anger before hearing what Trump had to say. He defended the president's tariff threats when asked what national emergency justifies them. But legal experts question whether Trump can impose these tariffs. The Supreme Court is expected to decide soon whether the president's tariffs issued through the International Emergency Economic Powers Act are constitutional. The U.S. could possibly be forced to refund tens of billions in tariff revenue already collected. The new European tariffs could face the same legal scrutiny. Trump argued during his Davos speech that it costs Denmark hundreds of millions per year to run Greenland. He said U.S. control would bolster Greenland's security from countries like Russia and China. He called it vital for national and international security. But analysts see a different motivation. As the conversation reported, Trump's tactics may be less about national security and more about eliminating competition from China and securing wealth for U.S. interests. This form of coercive diplomacy threatens the political and economic development of not only Greenland but Europe. Juan Morichimi, this comprehensive coverage has been valuable to you. Hit that subscribe button and like this video. So where does this leave us? Trump has ruled out military force. He seeks immediate negotiations, but the tariffs stand. the diplomatic pressure continues. European troops remain in Greenland, and NATO faces ongoing tensions. And the international order established after World War II faces a fundamental challenge. Greenland's future belongs to its people. That principle has been stated repeatedly by Greenland, Denmark, European leaders, Canadian leaders, and even some American congressional leaders. The question now is whether Trump's shift to diplomacy represents a genuine change in strategy or simply a tactical pause in a longer campaign. The world is watching. Greenland is watching. And the answer will shape international relations for years to come. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to our channel for daily news aggregation from trusted sources. Hit the like button if you found this breakdown helpful. And comment below with your perspective on this developing story. We'll continue monitoring this situation and bring you updates as they happen.